Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open mind and heart to your listening experience and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality in a way that is extremely empowering. Speaking of exploring powerful perspectives, I'm super excited to announce the release of my very first book, The Golden Key: Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. If you're ready to alchemize the circumstances in your life so that your abundance expands to an entirely new level in 2021, head over to goldenkey.gift to download the audio or ebook as my gift to you by using the code POSITIVEHEAD. All right, all you positive heads, I am excited to say that we have a legendary special guest on this week's Soul Share episode. I have Raghu Markus here with me on the show. Raghu has been involved with transformational media since he first collaborated with Ram Dass the same year I was born, back in 1974, and he is currently the executive director of the Love, Serve, Remember Foundation, as well as the host of the Mindrolling Podcast. Raghu, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Brandon. That's... I don't know if I go as far as legendary. I guess that's what happens when you get old. It doesn't mean shit.
You're a living legend, whether you like it or not. So I'd love to start off with the same. I have my cliche opening question I love to ask.
I have one too.
That's you do? Oh, well, we could even swap them if you want.
When we reverse here.
All right. Fair enough. So my cliche question is this. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You got 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
How many words do I get? Just one?
10 floors. You've got 10 floors.
10
you
floors.
Decide how fast that elevator is.
Shit, now I've only got 7 probably if it's a fast elevator.
Counting down.
Well, we're talking, to me, there's more than one thing going on at the same time, and in the ultimate area, thanks to God, I got turned inward, long time ago, and what manifested was what I had been looking for, without even knowing the totality of it, meaning my guru Neem Karoli Baba through Ram Dass. And but once that did happen, there was nothing else. I, in fact, said to myself, "Shit, I'm done now. Now it's just playing out of karma, right? That ultimate thing. And now it's just playing it out. And the playing it out in terms of passion has always been music. Music has always been such a huge thing. I had a label for almost 20 years in LA around world beat dance and jazz, and ultimate passion on the relative plane might be just turning people on to that presence that we all know about one way or the other. So that is the great passion and joy on the relative, and on the absolute, it is being in that.
Yeah. I love that. I love that answer. That was the Willy Wonka answer, which I don't know if you saw Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, where the elevator shoots out of the top and goes into the cosmos. And you've earned the right for the Willy Wonka answer. I like it.
That's great.
So I know the audience would love to hear a bit of your backstory. It's such a fascinating one, what I know of it. And perhaps you could just share whatever you feel is relevant to share.
The biggest relevance is that we are all the same.
Mm.
And when I look at my the evolvement that has happened over my life, and most especially when late teens, early 20s, when I started to wake up. I meet so many people now because of my position with as director of the Love Serve Remember Foundation and the podcast. Like I'm meeting podcast, every week I've got meeting a new person. It's fantastic, really.
It is incredible.
And Jesus, it's all the same. It's
Mm-hmm.
unbelievable. The way people wake up, what they do with it, their perspective changing, all of it. It's really heartening. It really is.
Mm.
But and it happens for people in different among within that sameness there is a diversity, a huge diversity in terms of getting woken up or just understanding shit. There is another reality, and it is not the me that I'm working with on a day-to-day basis. And so, but for me, it was again, it was music.
Mm-hmm.
That is my first out of body, whatever kind of experience, or an experience just actually way within that I couldn't describe at the time, was at I was 16 years old at a John Coltrane concert in Montreal, where I'm from, in a club. I don't know how they got me in even, I was with some friends, older friends. And at one point, I was into jazz, and I used to go in New York to the 5 spot around that age. It was crazy.
Wow.
And he started playing My Favorite Things, which is a very, very famous song.
Mm-hmm.
And on soprano sax, I don't know if you know his work at all, but
a little bit.
He is one of the most spiritual musicians that ever lived, as far as I'm concerned.
Wow.
Anyhow, I went out. I had the discursive thinking stopped, and I was completely absorbed. And within, it was like being in it rather than a subject-object listening.
Right.
And so it just, that basically really made me understand, okay, there is a way out of this. I was in a lot of pain. I was really unhappy, tyrannical father, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Shitty at school, hated school. I was just a mess. So that really, I can feel myself sitting in that club now.
Wow.
That's how radiant that moment was.
Wow.
And so that was a big demarcation. Aside from the usual stuff you'd hear from people of my generation, hey, without Dylan saying, yeah, what the fuck is going on here? Something's going on, I don't know what it is, do you? So that was really important, I got to tell you.
Yeah.
By the way, everybody out there is a film that Martin Scorsese did called The Rolling Thunder Review. It was Dylan and a bunch of people going out in 1975 to tour, and they would all the way into Canada and so on, and they would use, Dylan used to drive the tour bus. They have the most incredible footage and a lot of interview stuff that Scorsese did. And in this thing, so it's a real historical, incredible film. And, it's Martin Scorsese.
Right.
But, the best, I've seen, as you can imagine, being from that era, some of the most incredible artists, from Hendrix, all the way. So in this thing, Dylan, they got him totally close up, and the fantastic recording of the concert. But the visual he wore whiteface. So for him, that was it allowed him. It's funny because we're talking about masks, and Ram Dass used to talk about masks a lot more recently before he left. But he used this whiteface, so then he could express himself without any kind of paranoia whatsoever. You know, Dylan he's out there. Okay?
Yeah, right.
So it is so I'm digressing. I'm so sorry, Brandon.
Apology accepted.
It is so transforming. If you get this into a really nice sound system and you put this on, it's on Netflix or something. I'm sure you'll find it. Rolling Thunder Review, Martin Scorsese on Dylan. It is transforming. And now maybe, so one day I was in Maui before Ram Dass left.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just living in the house with him for a bit. And he had these caretakers, and one of them was experimenting, making really great edible. But he did this, and he said he gave it to Ram Dass and myself, and it was like in the evening, so before bedtime and all that. Mm-hmm. We thought, okay, this is good. You know, it helps you sleep. It's, CBD, CBN. It's not THC. Mm-hmm. And anyhow, I took this and went on a bit of an acid trip because the numbnuts, he took the buds, okay? Not the shake. You take the shake. That's where you get the CBD, CBN. He took the buds and he oh my God. Next
surprise.
And I put both wrong. We put this thing on because somebody told us to watch it, Rolling Thunder Review, and had this extraordinary experience.
Wow.
But I've seen it many times since then, and it's just exceptional. That just gives you, we're talking at the very beginning about passion.
Yeah.
This had more passion in this than things, almost anything you could watch. Anyhow, I get up in the morning and have breakfast, and it was Ram Dass, and I said, so the guy who did it, he said, well, how was that? I said, what the hell did you do? I was completely stoned all night. And Ram Dass goes, what happened? I was so high up all night. And this is Ram Dass, who's taken 3 billion acid trips.
Yeah, right. Totally.
And we both went to this place. It was phenomenal. Anyhow, that's the kind of thing that really, without which I just don't know what I would have done back then, because I was in such distress, really. Yeah. And it was, of course, psychedelics eventually, a few years later, that changed everything for me. How many people have they changed it for? It's
more than I can count.
What are they doing now with proving that it works? MDMA with PTSD, and the government just said, "Yep, looks like this works. Looks like, a year or two, they're going to make it legal to work with a therapist and do this." So, yeah, it changed everything. And as Ram Dass himself said, the fact that I had done these psychedelics and gotten a facsimile, he used to call it a facsimile of the thing, that thing, which is ineffable. So we call it that thing there, which is my famous...
psychedelics are a facsimile of
the experience of the merge, or of the beyond, or of the not two, or whatever the hell we want to call it. Yeah. So, but he said with that, I was able to... grok, which is an old word meaning completely embrace, when I met Neem Karoli Baba. I was able to understand probably way more than I would have had I not had that experience. Of course,
sure.
It makes sense.
Sure.
So, and the way things happen, which is another thing, people looking at each of our lives, and you see God, the way things happen. You just told me a great story of an experience you had with somebody close to you, and how that just all of a sudden manifested and gave you what you needed in the moment. And the more we can trust that, really, things get a lot easier. You stop fighting and pushing against the called dharma in the East. What it is that you manifest in this life. So I was running a radio station in Montreal. I was the program director of this really powerful rock and roll. I'm 22 or something.
What a ride that must have been to be doing that at 22.
It was a great ride. I met everybody. I mean, coming through, they was come through and they were performing in Montreal, Led Zeppelin.
22. Wow.
Yeah,
what a trip.
So I had a gas. And then again, all music, it was music. And it's coming full circle right now on the Love Serve Remember and ramdas.org. I mean, we're doing these wonderful Ramdas Soul Land music series. We just finished last Friday night. The series we're putting out, compilation. I'm so happy to be involved that way again.
Well, yeah.
So anyhow, so they called at the station, and some people wanted to have us promote Ramdas speaking at McGill University. I said, Ramdas? I had no idea. Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, I knew the Hare Krishnas at that point. I knew Meher Baba, but no Ramdas. Mm-hmm. And they go, wait, Richard Alpert and Tim Leary. Oh, Christ, of course I love them. But send over a tape or something. He must have some recording so I can tell what it is that he does. And they sent it over. And that was, everything I had wanted and needed to hear from, the youngest mind that I could think of, always wondering what in the hell is this about and what's going on. And for anybody who's listened to a Ram Dass talk, he has that power to communicate the truth in a way that's full of humility and completely and absolutely honest. It's rare. It's a rarity. So you can really relate with it. So I did, and then I got to meet this guy. So I went down, and I met him in somebody's house. He was there alone. He opened the door, and he was just a few feet away from me, and just he had these beautiful big blue eyes, and he just contacted me. There was no Richard Alpert, there was no Ram Dass, there was just whatever I needed, and how I needed to be embraced in that moment. That's all that was there, and through that, I just had it was very unconditional. It was amazing, Wow. And through that, I got trust. And that trust basically led me to India to meet Neem Karoli Baba. And, so I owe Ram Dass absolutely everything. And so many people do. And in fact, later on, at one point, we used to call him Maharaji. He said, you don't know who Ram Dass is. You wouldn't have gotten here without him. So he made it very clear as to what. And not everybody did get there through Ram Dass, but almost everybody. Wow. I mean, so that's my story. And as I said before, once that happened, it was like, okay. I mean, because as soon as in the second that I saw him physically, when he came out of his room into a porch, holy shit, I know this wasn't new. I know this forever and ever, and I will know, it was like completely beyond any of my time concepts, and it got completely broken down. And then I said to myself, oh shit, that's what Ram Dass was about.
Yeah. Wow.
That was it. And later on, he actually said, because it's a very naive thought. Oh, God, okay, now I'm done.
Right.
What are you talking about? And later on, he said himself, before he left, I've done everything for you. Now I leave you the mind. And we all went, oh, fuck. No.
That doesn't sound good.
No, it's horrible. Can't you just remove that? If you have all that power.
Did you take that with you?
Oh, shit. And so, we've been doing that dance since then.
Wow. Yeah, well, what you shared, you referenced, before we started recording, I shared with you a really powerful experience I had last week with, someone channeling some information and it being just super intense. And you said several things that came up during that experience, which was you have no idea how in it together you all are. Like you're just so in it together. And this the other thing that came through was how important it is. Like Ram Dass, so as you said, just so humble, and it's such a slippery slope for people. That was a big thing that came through for me. Is like, Brandon, a big part of your journey coming up is, can you control the ego? Because if you can't, you lose. And it's like, and they even said that,
well, you're never going to control. I have to say that ain't going to happen.
Or tame, or keep it in its right context. I suppose
it's a good servant, but a shit ass master.
Exactly. Yeah. And it seems like so many fall, they just instantly something happens. They have some level of success, and all of a sudden the ego is just out of control. And that's something that Ram Dass was such an incredible example of. And it's it's so attractive too, when you see it. And so, you see people who have so much gifts in the world, but then the ego is like, they're just sort of, out of control. And
I mean, if I may say something about that,
please.
Teachers, all of teachers are not cooked. They're teachers. They're pointing the way, and they're very useful.
Teaching best what they most need to learn.
Huh?
Teaching best what they most need to learn.
Yeah, that's there. But some of it's just much more simple. It's, just super attachment to power still in subtle ways, or sex, or whatever. And but that doesn't mean that they can't offer something. Then there are the rarity is a being that has no agenda and is not at all stuck in subject object anymore, and they've gone beyond. Yeah. And generally they're not teachers. They're beers, and go in around the bee, and the honey is there. That's funny. So but it's a tough thing, especially in the West, because we got a lot of screw ups going on around sex and power. Boy, oh boy.
No.
So
it's sort of the you think of like the temptation of the devil. Here's the power. Here's the the archetype of this allure of power and sex and money and all these things, and all have their place, as stated, useful in the right context. I like what you said about the beer. You come around and there's honey, and it's like, my initials are BBB. So I always think that is the number one thing I'm here to figure out, is how to be. I also thought I wanted to reference back to the power of music and what you were talking about with Coltrane. Have you seen Soul yet? Yeah, so it made your experience made me think of Soul, and just, when I was watching that, all I could think is, I am so grateful of all the children that are going to see this movie. Imagine seeing that at 8 years old. That's
one great thing that was done in the last number of years, I would say, just for that reason, actually.
Yeah. Exactly. So what is you've had such an incredible journey, as you've just touched on, high level. What's most exciting for you now? What are you most lit up about?
Well, when I was in India with Neem Karoli Baba, one time he asked me, this is all through translators, although he would speak English and tough words like the one I'm going to say. So we knew he knew that was all of it. Everything's available to someone in that space. But he said, what did you do before you back in the West? So I'm trying to figure out how am I going to explain? I was the program director of a rock and roll radio station, right? That exactly was my job. And before I could say anything, he went, he's to point his finger. And in English, no translator, he went, broadcaster. And I like, okay, well, this used to happen every day, so it wasn't anything unusual that he would do that. And my entire life has been about, aside from I'm doing podcasts now, and aside from the radio I did back then, and all the other kinds of things that I do in that area, I love to just share whatever I liked. And I have done that, and that is the most exciting thing. And the fortunate part is because I see, people write in and talk about how this stuff has affected them and so on. But I used to. It's such a weird thing because I
still do on another channel.
I mean, I used to go to India. I keep thinking because I don't know. I've been going every year for a long time. There were years that I didn't go. Now, of course, nothing. In 2020 and 2021 sure don't look good to go to India right now.
Right.
Everybody,
wow.
Anybody, by the way, anybody who can help, just look out. You can see there's so many different ways to help with what's going on in India. You can go to ramdas.org. We've got a whole funnel that you can use for donations or this directly, not through us, but directly to these organizations. So
great.
Yeah, but just after Neem Karoli Baba left that body, a very close being to him that we knew about but never really saw much, named Siddhima, a woman saint in her own right, came out sort of the back room into the front room, and I mean that figuratively, but she suddenly started seeing us and hanging, and she knew everything about all of us and said, oh yeah, Maharaj used to tell me about you all. So she became a mentor for all of these years, just absolutely incredible. It was our Indian mother, basically. So we were really fortunate. And she just said so many things that made so much sense on just on the relative plane, like a mother would. A mother takes care on the relative. Sure. But in her case, she was in that as well as the absolute. She was so connected into that. One of the biggest things that she used to reinforce with us, aside from just all she was interested in us, was relating around our experience of Neem Karoli Baba and hers. And it was what Thich Nhat Hanh now call Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese monk who's still with us, although had a stroke a couple of years ago. He said, the coming Buddha is the satsanga, is the community. And she would say that to us all the time. In Hindi, it's satsang in Sanskrit. But that is the most important thing for us in these times, and any times really. But even more so in the times we are going through, is the ability for us to get together and see the commonality, not just in our hearts, but in the things that really are challenging. And once you see that, everything changes. And you stop feeling like this separate entity that is besieged and is taken advantage of, and so on and so forth. So, yeah.
It makes so much sense, too, as, here in LA, I, of course, run this communal property, and it's people sometimes look at me. I think of my brother, for example, who's like, I couldn't do it in a million years. He's isolated in his perfect sterile environment, and yet, in this container, the amount of transformation that is possible and that happens, and the people who come through, randomly. And, I had it this morning, someone who randomly ended up here for a few days, and their world is shifted because of the energy of what they felt. And it's like, it has to, the future is, I so believe that, it's this community, we are all in it together, and finding a way to, a rising tide raises all ships, right? And it's not always easy, but I so resonate with that idea.
Yeah, and it's necessary just because of the extreme trauma we're going through. Start with the environment and move from there, the polarization. I mean, this is very extreme times that we are in, the pandemic. And so how else do we have a chance unless we come together, right?
Yeah. What do you think Ram Dass's, if you're here today, his perspective on COVID would be?
I think he would express a reality which is that our collective karma over a very long period of time is now expressing this through a worldwide, just think of it. It has so many repercussions.
Yeah.
But nature is expressing its unhappiness, shall we say, with what we have done. We have created something that is coming back to us.
Yeah.
And I think he would have seen it from that light, and he would have said what we just talked about. So we need to gather together, and we need to do the kinds of social action that makes sense. And at the same time, we need to find that inner place that we all recognize is true for everybody, and just let that flourish, so that we're not walking around in fear and paranoia, anger and separation.
Yeah.
Because if we're doing that, no matter what kind of action we think we should take, it won't work.
Yeah.
So, and he was all about being on more than one plane of consciousness at the same time. So meaning in this case, do the social action, but do the work, the inner work that's necessary to get the perspective that is not that one up in our noggin. It's not coming from the judge and jury. It's not coming from the comparisons. It's not coming from this sense of separateness. And it doesn't believe our thoughts, okay? And that's what he called loving awareness, and taking breaths into the center of your chest and moving into that place, which is the place of unconditionality. And so we got to do that work, and then what social action we might be taking has much more of a possibility to manifest.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too. My perspective on it, I refer to it as the COVID chrysalis. It's, when you're going through any sort of a birthing process, I think, it's ugly. I mean, for the caterpillar, it's a devastating experience, literally, to become the butterfly. And one of the things that, I'm curious what your thought is on this, having been on this transformational path of self-realization for, such a long time now. For me, it started about the same age as you were, early 20s, mid 90s in my case. Right. And so even then, I remember, reading. At the time, there was no podcast. There was, I'd read books, and these people are not in my world. Like, you were in such a unique, wow, I can't imagine 1974 running a radio station, like the center of all things cool are coming through, your world. But, for me being a normal upbringing, and, and reading these books and having my own awakening happen, but there was no one close to connect with on this level. I mean, I would talk about this stuff and it's like, what are you smoking? Or that's interesting. And people would go about their daily lives. But one of the things that I always think about is, a lot of these texts and things predicted this, this is going to spread, that the Buddha of community is coming, and I've really seen that on my own 25 years journey now for me. I've seen, like, now I go to, transformational festivals and, every 21-year-old say, yeah, of course I know I'm one with all things, like, duh, it's like cool. It's trendy. And it's great. So I'm curious for you, going back even further. Yeah, there was people like Ram Dass but there was certainly, not as much. I guess you tell me what your perspective is on how the journey of awakening has unfolded, on the planet from your vantage point. And are you inspired by what you're seeing now?
I really am. What's going on today and next gen, all the way to X. I actually have a grandchild that's what is she going to be? She's 11. Yeah, she's going to be 12 next at the end of the year, beginning next. And I did a podcast with her because she's into it, and she's extraordinarily bright. And I just wanted to see what do you think about the pandemic? What do you think about the political?
You brought her on your show?
Yeah, we just did a thing.
Cool.
In fact, today I was thinking, geez, I haven't put that out. I mean, she was good for about 20 minutes, right? Although I guess I could have tried to go on beyond that, but I thought short is sweet. She had the most measured responses, Brandon. Incredible.
Wow.
Absolutely incredible. And I know she's not the only one.
Yeah.
And then, take it out a little bit further. I mean, I met with somebody, was it yesterday, I think, a student in Chicago who had watched Adventure Time. You remember Adventure Time?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so that ended up being Duncan Trussell, my friend who has a great podcast.
Yeah, he's great.
It ended up being his partner in Midnight Gospel, which was on
Netflix show
last year. Yeah, which is a great show. Which he used a bunch of his podcasts, his audio, and he mixed it with these great crazy ass visuals. It was phenomenal.
It is crazy,
and
in a good way.
This kid saw it, and it led him to the podcast, to Ram Dass and me and all of it. And he was so here and now with it, and not in a trippy way whatsoever. He was so grounded. I was like blown away. And the other part is you see that there's real desire to take action and do something about the environment. That's very obvious, because that's starting to be a little bit of a time bomb. Yeah. And but other things as well, around polarization, around what's going on in the society, and around political, tough stuff, racial justice. I mean, boy, we got it in spades. So I am so gratified, and to be directly talking to some of these people is it's incredible. And does it remind me of late 60s, early 70s with what was going on? Absolutely. But you know what? We were way more selfish, is the way I see it. People now are less selfish, next gen. And
really?
We were about, okay, I'm going to find out who I am. And, I was in Berkeley at one point. This is before I got a little bit more conscious, but around the same time. And it's when the riots were happening, and, they were like, knocking down the Bank of America windows and the whole thing. I happened to be driving with my friend about 6 blocks from there as this was going on, unbeknownst to me. And suddenly my friend turns to me and he goes, geez, I'm feeling really stoned. What? But did we smoke or do anything recently? I said, no, you're right. And then I look up and I go, there's waves of tear gas is floating.
Oh, wow.
That's where we were at. Okay,
wow.
Cheech and Chong. Okay, what's going on? And so I feel like, but eventually, as consciousness really rose in terms of my, as I said, absolute interest, then I became what I think now is just more self-involved, and the naivete of looking for enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea about that, and now what I tell people is, don't bother with that. How about just getting a little bit kinder, a little bit more compassionate, a little more love? How about radiating that? How about not being so stuck in me land?
Yeah.
That's where we need to go. So
yeah.
I feel the more of that is happening now than back in the day when I was the same age.
Yeah, and it makes sense that it would evolve collectively in that direction. You make me think of I forget the guy's name. It's been a few years since I had him on the show, but he spent 25 years just going around the world to study different people who claim to have different, mystical abilities. And he when I asked him, okay, you've done this for a very long time, what was the most profound thing you came across? And he said, Brandon, I set out and it was really about, if I look back now, it was sort of an ego-driven thing. Like, oh, how do I go and find this power for myself, in some way? And he's like, and now I realize after all these cool, fascinating things I saw and adventures that I had, the most powerful experience that he ended up having was meeting Mother Teresa. And when he was in Mother Teresa's presence, he said something about her and just her beingness, her heart was so open, the power that came off of it, like it literally shifted me in some way. And it was, it wasn't her, levitating or doing this thing that I had set out. It was her heart. Her heart just expanded in such a way that just being in her presence, had more impact on me than anything else. And I thought that was a really powerful, observation and one that we can all learn from and save a lot of time and energy to focus in that direction.
Yeah. It reminds me of the film we did with Ram Dass called Becoming Nobody. It came out a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. People should find that. It's a really great thing about identity and roles and transforming oneself. At one point, Ram Dass said, so when is what I want enough? When is what I need enough? It's much more interesting to serve people.
Yeah.
And that's this man's experience, I'm assuming.
Yeah. It makes me I always think of the Gandhi quote, if you want to find yourself, lose yourself in the service of others. And I like to say, the reason that holds true is because there are no others.
Yeah, but on a practical level, if you start to think about somebody else and what they need, as soon as you start doing that, you stop thinking about yourself. It's a simple thing, really. Yeah. And that is why the seva, that practice, is a major practice in the East, for sure.
Before we continue on with today's episode, I'd like to take a moment to tell you a little bit about my very first book, The Golden Key: Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. The concept for the book initially came to me in a dream and has been followed by a next level amount of synchronicity, confirming for me that the information in the book is pertinent to get to the world at this moment in our collective evolution. In the book, I share the 8 keys to manifesting abundance that I've personally discovered over 25 years of trial, error, and deep exploration, including one golden key that ultimately ties them all together. I think most of you will agree with me that talk is a bit cheap, especially these days, and results speak the loudest of all. Well, these keys have led me to manifesting incredible results, such as an Inc. fastest growing private company, uncanny health, incredible relationships, and success with this podcast. However, I'm not any more special than you, and anyone can apply this information to achieve incredible results in their own life. I also believe waking up our planet by sharing these keys to abundance is the quickest way to help us to transition our home into the planet of paradise it is destined to become, which is why I'd like to gift the book to you at goldenkey.gift when you use the golden key code POSITIVEHEAD. I would also like to invite you to create your own unique golden key code so you in turn can gift the book to others, as well as invite you to participate in a unique abundance manifestation game with me and the other readers that is outlined in detail at the end of the book and on the website, where readers are also going to share the inspiring results of their abundance manifestation experiments. Lastly, I'm going to practice what I preach by sharing 50% of the abundance generated from the golden game and sale of the other golden goodies on the website with you and all the other readers. So if you're ready to alchemize the circumstances in your life so that your abundance expands to an entirely new level, head over to goldenkey.gift to download the audio or ebook as my gift to you by using the code POSITIVEHEAD. Also, if you end up loving and appreciating your gifted copy of the book, please take a moment to go to Amazon and give it a review, which will greatly help me reach and unlock more hearts with the golden key. You started telling me before we were recording something about Chogyam Trungpa.
Oh, yeah.
I would like to hear. I wanted to hear that.
Yeah, so I fortunately got with somebody who was very close to him from long time back, Judy Leaf, and Judy edited a whole pile of his books. So I was going to do a thing with her, and I thought, I have been not a student of Trungpa's, not officially anything. I just love him. I did meet him back in the day.
Of course you did.
But the reality is, for those of you who don't know, this was a Lama that came to the West, studied at Cambridge or something, or he spoke English perfectly. He understood Western psychology better than any teacher from the East that I've ever met. I'm not talking about like Karmapas, these beings that are beyond the two, but as a teacher. And so he wrote many books, and I urge you all to. One's called Spiritual Materialism. That might be a good place to start. So I was going to talk to Judy, and I found a book that I had never seen of Trungpa's, and it's called Transcending Madness. Okay? That alone is worth...
Yeah,
okay, what are we talking about?
You had me at the title.
Yeah, right. It's that kind of thing. Understanding, what did he say? Understanding madness and sanity. Madness and sanity, and learning to work directly and skillfully with extreme states of mind. That's what you get out of this book.
Wow.
Okay. And it is based, so some of it's a little esoteric because it's based on the bardos, which are the intermediate in-between states that you go through when you leave, when you die, and you go through these states. But his whole thing was he brought it into how this is an in-between state as well. You come into this body and you're in this in-between state. So it lasts for 70, 80, 90, 100 years, whatever.
Yeah.
It's an in-between state. And
what a concept that is, just that right there by itself.
Yeah, right.
You're in it now.
Anyhow, I found some really fantastic things, and let me just read one, Brandon, because it's...
Please.
it really connects with what we've been talking about, that you are not alone, and the work that one does to let the truth flourish inside oneself is not alone. And so he says, as we work on ourselves, then we continuously work with others as well. Because there's no way unless you're going in a cave somewhere, there's no way that you are not. That is the only way of developing ourselves. And that is the only way of relating with the six. So there's 6 Bardo spaces. And I won't go into that because then it starts to, one of them is a dream Bardo. And then the other is the Bardo between birth and death, which we just talked about. There's a Bardo of emotions. All these have a tremendous connection with our projection of the world outside. Okay, this is all we are doing all the time. We are projecting from a place of ignorance. We have, I mean, you see it. You might see something like you're driving on the road way ahead. Oh my God, is that a body? Well, it turned out to be a cardboard box that got crumpled and looked a little. I mean, it's all, that's a gross thing, but it's all projection.
Yeah.
Other persons, animate and inanimate objects, the apparent phenomenal world also play an important part. But unless we're willing to give in, give way, and learn from these situations, then our prefabricated learning doesn't help. It doesn't mean anything at all. So unless we're willing to give in, give way, and learn from these situations, which is what our day-to-day, if you get into that perspective day-to-day, hey, this is all, well, Ram Dass called it grist for the mill, to become free. And there is no other job we have. Yes, we can, and we have to recognize the place. You're Mr. Podcaster, I'm Mr. Podcaster. Oh boy. And and that's it right there. We just laugh. The sense of humor. I'm glad you just laughed, because that is the thing. Without that sense of humor, we are so fucked. It's not even funny. We take everything so seriously, as if this is the preeminent moment that is going to dictate this, that, and the other. And it's all based on, we're either pushing it away or sucking it in, one of the two. Right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's the superpower, that laughter. Speaking back to that experience I had last week, we were talking about the really kind of heavy and challenging things that I would face in the future. And then it's like, and somehow it came up, this idea of just laughing at it all. And then the response was, well, yeah, and nothing can be done about that. That sort of, disrupts everything when you bring humor and levity to this situation, because it really is laughable and silly.
But it creates space right away.
Yeah, it does.
You're not caught.
Right away.
And the whole thing, people say to me, well, all these years you've been doing this shit, what's happening? What'd you get out of it? And what can you manifest? I can manifest the fact that I'm not reacting knee-jerk the way that I did a long time back. It's not happening. And there's just more spaciousness. So one more thing from Trungpa, because
please.
Actually, this is something we have this podcast will be going out later than what we're talking here, but we have this 8-week course, The Life and Teachings of Ram Dass and the Art of Being Here Now. I found this other thing from Trungpa that is so relevant. In this case, ego is that which is constantly involved with some kind of paranoia, some kind of panic. In other words, hope and fear. That is to say, as you operate, there's a constant reference back to yourself.
Wow.
As you refer back to yourself, there's a criterion of reference develops then a criterion of reference develops in terms of hope and fear, which is what? Gaining something or losing one's identity. Right? It's a constant battle. That seems to be the notion of ego, in this case, of its neurotic aspect. And so, right, we talk about ego in the very beginning, and I said, well, you can't control it, and it's good. You know, it's a good, a good servant, but a lousy master. But the whole thing that battle inside ourselves is the work that we do.
Amen.
And it's work. It means practice. You got to do stuff so that you can allow that spaciousness I talked about, which is Trungpa calls it. Eventually, it's a gap. So you're not just constantly firing. It's firing. It's firing. Reactivity. It's firing. It's emotion. No. Yeah. You know?
Totally.
And so the gap happens where you're not jumping in.
Yeah.
The way you would. Anyhow.
I just obviously will resonate with this so much because that's my journey has been one of, you know, the non-reactivity, and just every day is another chance to not be that asshole reacting. You know, everyone's got to like Mike Tyson said, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face, right? And so it's like, right. And so
that's great. Mike Tyson is our guru. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I mean, it's literally, that's been my journey of everything you just summed up in that reading is self-reference between hope and fear. And just like this in a neurotic way, and then how do I work on creating that space and slowly but surely catching it and getting a little bit better and more aware of these tendencies that we have.
Yeah, and motivations and all of it. But none of that happens without, I mean, obviously everybody, I'm sure you talk about meditation is very important, and but it can take place through somatic stuff, you know, Tai Chi, yoga. It can take place through there. It can take place through the heart, which is chanting and all that. And there's so many different ways. So that's the beauty of it all. But definitely you got to sit down where you're not getting lost. The way that we get lost as soon as we start brushing our teeth.
Yeah, right.
Oh, what do I got to do today? You know, the movie of me is what my friend Krishna Das calls it.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to do this. I got to do that. Oh, I don't want to know about that. Oh, God, that. Yeah. I mean, it just the self-referential, hope and fear. I mean, just think of it. It's 24/7, and unless you do the practices like you guys get together in your compound and do stuff together that brings you into the unitive place inside ourselves.
Absolutely.
And that for those moments, for that time, I mean, of course it's easy, you know, mind goes off and starts thinking about what's going to happen in the future or what has happened in the past. That's why Be Here Now. This is the 50th anniversary of that book, by the way, this year.
Wow.
Be Here Now. And that's what this 8-week course we're starting next week is all about. And plenty of other things going on.
That is
around that.
50 years young.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that concept is as important. It'll be important. It is important today. It was important then, and it'll be important in the future. Because without that, there's no possibility of getting present with the presence.
Yeah. The gift, right?
Mm.
The gift is in the present. Wow. Well, I know you must have some fun stories to share. I always love one of the things I've done since day one on this podcast is ask guests for a story of synchronicity or serendipity or a positive paranormal story, something fun up your sleeve. I got to think there's more than one, but is there anything that comes to mind that would be fun story time to share?
Story time. Serendipity, synchronicity, something out of the normal.
When you could see the some other hand, perhaps, and playing around in the movie of you.
Yeah, right. Well, of course, with this being Neem Karoli Baba, that happened on a day-to-day, and some of it was more outlandish and dramatic, and some of it was we got used to it in a funny way. But one day, so we had, while we were in India with him, at one point, Ram Dass had arranged to have a meditation come and work with him and just a few people way up in the foothills of the Himalaya. And ended up, the teacher couldn't come because of illness in his family, but he was going up there and went up there, and we went up there. There was about 6 or 8 people to learn this practice, which is called Vipassana meditation, insight meditation, which Jack Kornfield, Sharon Salzberg, Joseph Goldstein brought back from the East, and we met 2 of them at that time. So my passport was expiring, so I left that place to go to Delhi to get it renewed. And I'm Canadian, and I was then, now I'm dual, and I knew the Consul General of Canada in Delhi through the owner of the radio station I spoke of before that I worked for, and he gave me this, and he said, if you ever have a problem, go talk to Jim, his name was. And I had to go past from where I was, higher up in the foothills of the Himalaya, down through where the temple was that Neem Karoli Baba was staying, Maharaji. So of course I'm going to stop off, and I stopped off. And so no other Westerners, just some Indian people around him and somebody who did speak English so could translate. And first thing he says to me, "Are you married?" I go, no way, I don't want to. I just want to marry God. Talk about the most asshole thing I could ever have said. When I think of it now, I'm like, it set him off into paroxysms of laughter. He laughed and laughed. He wants to marry schmucky over here. I'm sure he said. Anyhow, that went away. And, he ended up marrying me to a woman about a year later, okay?
Married you to the what?
Yes. Okay. After he said that, and I said that stupid thing. And then anyhow, the next thing was, he says, did you get Tibetan teachings? I go, no, I've never met a Tibetan in my entire life. No, Tibetan teachings you got. I said, well, there was supposed to be a Buddhist teacher who was going to come up with Ram Dass and I and Krishnadas and others, but he didn't. He went, nay, no, not him. You got teachings from Tibet Lama, 40 minutes, you got teachings. And I go, no, Maharaji, I don't know what you're talking about. I know. Jiao. And off I went to Delhi. Jiao means get out of here.
Beat it.
And I went, and I got invited by the consul to lunch at his beautiful, mansion in Delhi where they had the consuls. And I'm just waiting, and then he comes in the room, and he says, we're going to have lunch. And I said, by the way, I had heard that Canada's letting in Tibetan refugees. I said, I read that, or I heard it. He said, that's true. And as a matter of fact, he went like this. Out of the door of another room came a Tibetan Lama named Kalu Rinpoche, one of the great lamas of the last 100 years, and monks, a retinue of monks. Okay, I just about fainted and fell on the floor because 2 days earlier, Neem Karoli Baba is telling, anyhow, we went. I had this lunch, and I was like, I had taken acid because it was just too. I couldn't. It was out of. It was not possible. To, I knew who this being was too.
Yeah.
That just that alone would have been not
Right.
that somebody absolutely is just so inside of everything that there's no room for you to think you're a somebody at all. And then there was some CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, radio guys there, and they were going to interview him, and they said, come. And I went into this little room, and he was there with a translator, and these guys were asking stupid questions about, hey, what do you think about Christianity? And he was like, no, I don't know anything about Christianity. He wasn't going to respond to that because they weren't being sincere. And then they said, well, maybe you ask him something. As soon as that happened, he sat up and he contacted me like riveting, and I got teachings for 40 minutes.
Wow.
Tibetan teachings. And they were, simple things. I said, I've been up in the mountains where I can really, meditation is so easy, blah, blah, blah. But now I'm in the city. I don't know what to do. Do you have to be in the mountains to be able to, that kind of early stuff? And he told me the stories of the 7 siddhas of India who all became enlightened through their work. One was a weaver, one was a pottery guy, whatever. And that was the kind of how important the human body. You don't get that a lot, he said to me. By the way, that's something for everybody else to think. This is, he said, the only way you can merge with that which is ineffable, and we don't talk about it, but the only way you can merge is through a human body, because it allows this, it has the empathy, the compassion, the suffering, they've got the whole deal. And so this is what I got. I walked out of there, Brendan. It was nothing less than being on acid for about a week.
Wow.
Okay. And of course, when I got back to see him again, he didn't say there was nothing, no recognition, zero. It was like, because I was coming. Yeah.
So he's just perceiving, like, in that moment, like, from a timeless state, like, I already know. It's like it's already happened to him almost, right?
Yeah, there's no time and space with a being that's gone beyond. And basically, what I always thought and think back, well, it was like a computer that just did the right thing, whatever everyone needed to get along further on their evolvement. That thing did what was necessary. There was no attachment. There was no nothing. He wasn't thinking, I'm going to tell him this. I'm going to say broadcast. Nothing. It was just all flow. I mean, it's impossible to really say what it was. And some of it was just fun. We had so much fun.
Yeah.
He was funny and we had anyhow, I'm not going to go on and tell more about it. You can read, by the way. Here's something. There's a book called Love Everyone. It is the accounts of all of the Westerners that found their way to India and to Neem Karoli Baba, written by the woman who I just said he married us. Her name is Parvati Markus, and she is the mother of my children. And she wrote and she edited this incredible book, because you read this thing, you go, okay, that's where I'm at. That's where I was at. And you get the sense there's no difference whatsoever. And as he used to say to us, a guru is not a matter of a body. You do not need to have a body. Now, that's somebody who's, gone beyond and has access to everything and blah, 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 all that stuff. So that's a story.
That's a great story. I love it. And do you have anything, how much time did you spend with him?
Well, I was in India a year and a half, and I didn't get to him right away. So really, when you look back, and it was like nothing. The Westerners, the first ones, you know who Krishnadas is, I think, and other people would. Yeah, so him and another couple of the person who actually co-wrote with Ram Dass this memoir, Becoming Ram Dass, which is phenomenal. That just came out a couple of months ago. He was there. So from that point, which was following Ram Dass back to India, that was in 1970, and until he left. So for maybe 3 years is when, and I got to tell you, it's just a few hundred just think of, gurus that come over in India and all of that, millions sometimes. Few hundred, I mean, he had many Indian devotees for sure, but Westerners, a few hundred actually made it there. So it was over that 3-year period.
Wow.
And I was there a year and a half.
Wow. Whew.
Wow.
So is there, well, as we sort of wind down here, I guess, is there any other, from Neem Karoli Baba, is there any particular lesson or teaching that jumped out, or from Ram Dass, or both,
Ram Dass is a teacher. There's tons of shit. Go to ramdass.org and you can delight, or take one of these courses.
Sure.
But Neem Karoli Baba was...
I was going to say they sign up for the course on ramdass.org.
Yeah, go to ramdass.org and sign up to the email list, and you'll get notifications of all the different things we're doing, from the music series to films, Becoming Nobody. There's a lot going on. It's beyond just Ram Dass. It includes the podcast network with Jack Kornfield and Sharon and Roshi Halifax and on, and Krishna Das. So it's rich that way. What was the... Any particular,
as we wind down, any nugget of wisdom?
The
you
nugget.
Gleaned.
And I was going to say the nugget. I was going to say, so Ram Dass is easy. He was a teacher, and there's so much stuff. With Neem Karoli Baba, he was not a teacher, is not a teacher, and it was really being in the presence. But he did say things, and the biggest thing that he said, which Ram Dass used to, which is what the foundation is called: love everyone, serve everyone, and remember God. And there's a great story where when Ram Dass was first with Maharaji, when we were first with her, he said, "Well, Maharaji, how do we raise Kundalini?" Right? A typical yoga question kind of thing from the Western point of view. And he said, feed people. So Ram Dass said to himself, feed people? What the? What? I got all these Buddhist friends.
I wanted some breath of fire. Come on.
Yeah, I want arcane meditation practice. What? And so he thought, maybe he didn't really hear me. So he said, Maharaji, how do we get ourselves merged into the, whatever he said, into the one, God. And then Maharaji said, love everyone. We couldn't get away with anything in terms of, this is nothing to do with becoming who you are. Nothing whatsoever. Striving for powers or striving for the greatest next meditation practice or yoga practice is just nothing to do with the reality of being a good human being and being able to stop being so self-referential. The self-interest, the Buddha, Tibetan Buddhists have the greatest expression. Stop already with the self-cherishing. It's more of a Yiddish kind of a reference. But right? Self-cherishing. Yeah. So that's the work. The rest of it isn't our business in terms of how this manifests according to your karma and dharma to a place where you maybe at some point you are going to be less involved with separateness and more involved with unity. It can happen, and it happens for many people. Many people have substantial awakenings. Eckhart Tolle has a whole book about that. He had a substantial awakening. But so it's starting in the most simplistic. That's the beauty of what he did for us. He took out all of this bullshit, and we got directly, okay, this is what to do. It's real. And he told Ram Dass, love everyone and tell the truth. And Ram Dass said, truth is, I don't love everyone. But then he understood it's another place. That's the relative place, the absolute place. It's merging the absolute and the relative, basically. being able to be on both planes, and you understand. I mean, Ram Dass got there, so that's actually very positive for all of us. Somebody did get to the point where he was loving everyone, and yet he was not. Ram Dass would never have said he's enlightened or anything like. He's not a guru. He's none of that. But I can tell you, being with him, he got to that place. He embraced everyone from that place that he met. So it's possible.
Loving awareness.
Yep, loving awareness. That's it.
Well, if one person can run the 4-minute mile, then I suppose it is possible. And what an inspiring journey you've had.
Yeah, no, very fortunate and very thankful. I mean, really, huh? But it's all there for us, all of it. You don't need to go to that happened to us. We were probably people who needed to be hammered over the head because we were so dense. People are finding, and people have, and just in terms of Neem Karoli, Bob, there's so many different ways these manifest to these people after that bodies. So it's not necessary that that thing, which was in a this rotund man in a blanket, supposedly Indian, that's just a facade that we got drawn to, and it was fun, and wow, it was so great to be around. Yeah. But behind that is what my friend Lama Surya Das calls, when he met Maharaji, he experienced the big Maharaj, that thing which is these people, they manifest in these different ways, but there's only one thing going on. That's what the first thing. Oh, talk about a nugget. We'll leave with this nugget. The first thing that Maharaji said when I sat down, he sat down over and over in Hindi. Sab ek, all one. There is only one. One Krishna, Buddha, Muhammad, one Christ, and Hanuman are one, he said. So that is probably extraordinarily important.
The same one, plain
English.
Playing with forms,
Yeah.
Passing eternity.
yeah, exactly.
Wow. What is the best way? Obviously, ramdas.org. What's the best way for people to follow you? Obviously, your podcast. Any of those.
Yeah. So Mindrolling. BeHereNowNetwork.com. Go to BeHereNowNetwork.com/Mindrolling for what I do. But then you've got Ram Dass. I introduce his talks called Ram Dass Here and Now, and then so many great people. I mean that we have going, and we're going to have Alan Watts, who was great friends with Ram Dass. We're going to have a podcast from Alan Watts coming in at the end of May or early June 2021 is when this is being recorded. So that's a great way, because there's so many different voices that are just, as you said, boy, there's just this plethora of ways in which, that sub-ek, that there's only one, manifests itself, so it takes care of us all. And ramdas.org. Yeah, sign up there. Sign up on the Be Here Now Network. And there's so many different offerings, and just about everything we do is free. Even this course, although there was a price attached to it saying we want $108. Well, if you can't do that, sliding scale. You can't do that, you're in. And it's just beautiful. Whoever wants to. So, the rest of it, of course, helps to support what's become, very work intensive, with a lot of people having to do what's necessary to do everything that we offer and make it for free as best we can.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you. Andrew.
This has been wonderful. I do have one final cliche question to bring it back around to where we started in 60 seconds or less. What is the meaning of life according to Raghu, Markus?
Shit.
Shit's the meaning of life, and there we have it, folks.
The meaning of life. Who does anyone told you anything that makes any sense? I'd like to hear.
You know what I like?
Okay,
I'll tell you what I like. Meaning of life is to decide what the meaning of life is.
Okay, I will say, and then I've been saying this pretty much the same thing, and it really represents our lineage from Neem Karoli Baba, and certainly people more familiar with Ram Dass. The meaning is what happened, and I can say it in one nugget. When Ram Dass was first in India, he was told, by Neem Karoli Baba, do not talk about me to anyone. Okay? What did he do when he came back? That's all he did, except he never mentioned the name or the place. But that's all he did. Recently, as a couple of years ago, before Ram Dass left, I said, so why? He told you not to do that. Why did you do that? I don't get it. The Guru says, don't tell them. And he said, I had this jewel. How could I not share it?
Yeah.
You know? How could I not?
Yeah.
You know, so it's that impulse that he had that was so powerful. It's the bodhisattvic vow. I'm not going anywhere till everybody is free. That is the meaning of life as far as I can understand it. And that's in a limited, rational way. But certainly, you know, as His Holiness said, my only religion is kindness. This is what, and the more people that get more safe, get more secure, get more happy, that have see that whatever comes their way, they can live in an open-hearted way with, rather than fear, paranoia, and running from. So whatever we can do to contribute to that is what it's all about.
Well, I appreciate your contribution. I know all the listeners do. It's been quite the epic contribution. And thank you so much for
great to hang with
being.
you, man.
Yeah, I so enjoyed it.
We got to do it in, well, maybe we can soon, huh? Do it in
3D,
physical presence.
3D, yeah. Let's do it. We will make it happen.
Okay, you got it.
Looking forward to it. And all of you out there listening, thank you for tuning in your beautiful brainwaves and incredible hearts. Until next time, everyone, journey well. Also, before we sign off, I wanted to remind you to download the Golden Key audio or ebook as my free gift to you at goldenkey.gift using the Golden Key code POSITIVEHEAD. And please, if you enjoy my gift, leave a positive review on Amazon so others can find the book and unlock their lives with the help of the Golden Key as well.